against Kent. But right now, coming up here on 5 Sports Extra, it's 5 Live Formula 1 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Time for practice 2. Hello to Harry Benjamin.
Hello, Kevin. Thank you very much for that. Welcome along, everyone, to live coverage of Round 5 of the 2025 Formula 1 World Championship. Once known as a port city in Saudi Arabia, regarded as the port of entry for pilgrims heading to Mecca in modern times, Jeddah now hosts Formula 1 for the 5th time this weekend at the Jeddah Corniche circuit on the waterfront. Next to the Red Sea lies this fast and furious street track, as now the sun has set and the floodlights have come on to light up all 27 corners of this track. And it's a team of 3 up in the commentary box for this one, and one of us has actually raced and won around here. Spoiler alert, it's not the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Could have been me, Harry Benjamin, but sadly not to be. It is, in fact, reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling. Hello, Abby.
Hello, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I hope I can add some insight to the Jeddah Corniche circuit. As you said, I've won around here. It's a really exciting track, lots of unique challenges for a driver, and looking forward to getting the weekend started.
It is an absolutely ferocious track, fastest street circuit on the calendar. And Andrew, now though, compared to FP1, which was in the heat of the day with the sun overhead, now we get our first proper look at the competitive order.
That's right. Pierre Gasly was fastest in P1. That's not going to be the case, I don't think, when it comes to qualifying. But some bad news, by the way, for one of the competitors before the session even started. Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. They've discovered a fuel leak in that car and it can't be repaired for this session, so he won't be taking any part of it.
That is a shame for Gabriel Bortoleto, the reigning Formula 2 champion, who has raced around this track before and finished inside the top 10 in Formula 2. Hasn't managed to step onto the podium, but the track is lit up spectacularly, and set against the darkness of the ocean, it really, or the sea, it really shines out as we gear up for second practice, another hour's running before we head to the track. And it was Gasly who was fastest in FP1. But Abby, it's those McLarens which really look like they are the team to beat right now, and that dynamic that we're going to focus on throughout the weekend of Norris against Piastri.
You can't ignore the McLaren's pace. They've had it all year and it looks like they're going to continue with it going into this weekend. But as we saw, Pierre Gasly actually topping FP1 and looking strong for the weekend, but it's still early doors. There's still a lot to tune for the track. It's kind of a low downforce track, really fast, high speeds, and it means that the drivers have to go in confidence. So tuning the cars to give each driver the most confidence they can going into qualifying.
Yeah, it's just over 6.1 kilometres this track, 27 turns, 16 to the left, 11 to the right. You're reaching speeds of over 330 kilometres an hour. The average the average speed across a lap is north of 250. The slowest corner is coming through turn 2, which through the corner you're travelling still about 90 kilometres an hour in a Formula 1 car. Compare that to the fastest corner of the circuit, which isn't really even a corner. It's taken flat out, especially in qualifying, through the slight left-hander of turn 26, which leads you to the final corner of turn 27. You're getting over 315 kilometres an hour as you peel through there. It is the third longest track we have on the calendar. It's the track with the most corners, many of them taken blind. Does it almost, Abby, feel like you're on a bit of a roller coaster ride, certainly in that towards the end of the first sector in the middle?
Definitely, and it's like you're driving through a tunnel. You're so hyper focused, everything's going past you so quickly, and it's a feeling like no other driving through the circuit, especially the fact that the corners are blind and you don't know what's coming up, if there is someone on a cool lap lurking behind the wall that you can't see through, obviously. But I think it's an added kind of challenge to the track. Track positioning is so important, and when you're starting that quali lap, making sure you've got the space to breathe and stretch out your legs and try and get that lap.
Yeah, well, we saw a lot of running straight out the bat in FP1, and I think we'll see a lot more running now that the temperatures have slightly cooled as we enter the night time in Saudi Arabia. Air temperature 28.4 degrees, track temperature 37.3 degrees. And just to update you with the WEC Championship and how it stands coming into round 5 this weekend. It is Lando Norris who heads the drivers' standings, only though by 3 points to his teammate Oscar Piastri. Then it's Max Verstappen, George Russell and Charles Leclerc, the top 5. And over in the constructors, McLaren lead the way, 151 points to their name. They are 58 clear of Mercedes in second, Red Bull third, with Ferrari and Haas rounding out the top 5. All teams have now scored, with Williams in 6th, Aston Martin, Racing Bulls in 8th. Alpine got their first points on the board last week in Bahrain, courtesy of a 7th place finish for Pierre Gasly, and Sauber with points on the board, but now tied actually with Alpine, but on countback they sit last in the championship. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane. FP2 is underway with 59 minutes and 30 seconds remain, and it will be the Williams that heads out towards the pit lane exit of Alex Albon, who was struggling with some balance issues actually towards the end of FP1, but Williams certainly hoping they can continue their decent form that they've shown so far this season. Abby, Williams have really feel like they've come back fighting into 2025.
Yeah, the step in development that Williams have made has been phenomenal, and obviously paired with a great driver lineup in Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, they feel like the team that can really make a difference in that mid-pack going forward throughout the year. But it is concerning to hear that Alex isn't confident in the car. This is a track which confidence pays dividends, really. It's such an importance, and if you don't have that around this fast street circuit, it can really bite you in the back.
Well, a bit of a queue developing already in the pit lane as they try and feed out onto the circuit. The green light is on already. Alex Albon is pushing out on track. Now, Chris has actually beaten me to it on hashtag BBCF1, because we were going to do a Q&A with Abby Pulling throughout the course of this FP2 session. So if you have any questions for the reigning F1 Academy champion, she has graciously agreed to answer them as best as she can. So do send them in on hashtag BBCF1 and we'll try and get through as many as we can. The first one is from Chris already. Abby, where are you racing this season?
I'm racing all around the UK as well as throughout Europe. So a lot of the exciting European races are, Zandvoort, Monza, Spa, and this is in the GB3 Championship. So a few Grand Prix circuits, as well as the raw British racing tracks like Brands Hatch, Donington Park, Silverstone Grand Prix, actually racing there next weekend. So excited to get the season underway.
Have you got a favourite track?
Oh, definitely. I mean, to be honest, actually, Jeddah was a really, really big favourite of mine last year, but it had to be Singapore that took the title there. I really, really enjoyed Singapore. It's a track like no other. It's literally used every day with the road cars.
You got Spa coming this year, Abby, for the first time, so that might be a new one.
Yeah, it's really strange. Spa is one of the most popular European tracks. However, it's the one that I've never done, so it's quite daunting going there for the race weekend and learning it on the Thursday, but it's a challenge that I'm up for, and I've been lucky enough to go to some amazing circuits like Singapore, Jeddah, and I'm glad that I can add that one to the list.
Oh, it's going to be a mighty year for you, so we look forward to following you throughout it.
Actually, I was going to ask Abby this about, it's interesting she mentioned Singapore, because I've always thought Singapore is one of those tracks that looks like it's boring, right-hander followed by left-hander, 90 degree, but actually from talking to the drivers, it's actually a really good track, and I don't quite know why that is. Maybe Abby can say.
Yeah, trust me, it is not boring. I hope it's not for you guys watching, but for us in the driver's seat, it is. Although Jeddah is a street circuit, it's predominantly a track surface. It doesn't have the white lines on it, and it's also really smooth. Whereas Singapore, it's probably a bit narrow at places. It's really bumpy. Some bumps come out at you, and I swear they change every time you go around a different lap. And it's the track surface is literally a road, and they do cure it before the race weekend, but then white lines, there's no escaping them, and it always has just a little bit of greasiness to it because of the cars and the fuel and oil that's spilt all year round. It just never gets that ultimate grip, and again, because of the bumps, you have to run the car a bit higher, so you lose a bit of the downforce effect. It is just all or nothing around there.
So you definitely have a preference for nighttime street races by the sound of it.
Yeah, definitely. Driving under the streets, the street lights and under the floodlights is a feeling like no other, and I'm so lucky to have been able to experience that, but I can't even explain it to you. Everything comes up at you quicker. It feels, I can't even imagine what these drivers in the Formula One feel like going around the Jeddah circuit in the night, and it just exaggerates everything. It's nighttime, but it feels like you're in daylight. The floodlights are glaringly bright, but it's so exciting.
Well, it's already starting to get a little bit exciting out on track. Everybody is out there. No Gabriele Bortoleto for this session due to that fuel leak, so he'll be down on track time. But Kimi Antonelli getting all crossed up going into turn 1, which is a left-right chicane. Meanwhile, it was Antonelli again who was really riding the curbs, trying to get his way around the traffic. We were actually on board a few moments ago as Lewis Hamilton runs out wide and has to cut the corner at turn 22 as well. Charles Leclerc was on a fairly quick lap, but really having to weave his way through slower cars ahead of him. And at this track, as much as I think it can provide a spectacle, you've got to be so hyper aware, haven't you? Particularly when it comes to qualifying tomorrow, of managing the traffic, because it can all go wrong very quickly.
Yeah, a lot of the corners here are really unsighted, and everyone's on cool laps. If you're not in sync, it can be quite hard to manage. And even in the F1 Academy car that I raced last year, which is significantly slower than a Formula One car, they could come up on you quick. So that's even more exaggerated in this, and harder to manage. So that relationship with your engineer and the information that they're feeding you is that much more important around circuits like this.
To the top of the times, Lando Norris on the medium tyre, a 1:29.272 for the McLaren man, ahead of Max Verstappen by 0.6 of a second. Then comes Tsunoda, Piastri, Gasly the top 5, Sainz, Doohan, Alonso, Behrman and Stroll the top 10 as the first lap times start to get put out. And we're just getting a little look at the Williams, which is just having to be helped. It's Carlos Sainz as he peels out of the pit lane and just has to get wheeled back, otherwise he was heading straight for the pit wall there.
Yep, Sabo did a great job there.
That was Oscar Piastri referring to Nico Hülkenberg, who also had to be pushed back. The turning circle not quite large enough. If he carried on, he would have lost his front wing end plate into the wall. And Piastri, and he's really carving out this personality, isn't he? We're really seeing it more and more now as he comes into his own with this super laid-back guy. You think something like that helps you as a racing driver in conditions like this, when it's hot and the corners just keep on coming? If you're with that kind of tone, nothing phases you.
I did have to chuckle at his little thumbs up to the Sauber nearly driving into the pit wall. But it...
So there are 20 cars on track. I overtook 26 on this lap.
That was Alonso. There's actually only 19 cars on the track because the man you manage is not a part of this, Fernando Alonso. But that goes back to highlighting just how tricky it can be to overtake cars and find yourself a gap on this circuit. But coming back to Piastri, at the moment he is out there on the medium tyre. He's down in 5th at the moment, but he has got a touch of the Kimi Raikkonen, the ice coolness about him.
Yeah, his attitude and his demeanour, it's quite refreshing to see. I feel like we've not seen someone like this in a while. Like you say, Kimi Raikkonen was probably the last, although Oscar definitely does speak a little bit more than Kimi did. But he just is so cool, calm and collected, and he really, although he cares a lot, he doesn't let the emotions get in the way of his performance. I think that it's been showing in the past, and certainly this year is going to be an asset for him to not let the pressure get to him, the mistakes and things like that, which has hindered people like Norris in the past.
He's also got a really nice dry sense of humour about him. He's not boring at all, even though he's so calm and collected. He's really developing into quite an interesting character.
brief yellow flag just to say it's gone green again, but Lance Stroll going deep. Didn't see how it happened, but he's rejoining now in the exit of turn 2, so back to green flag conditions.
I actually have a little story about Oscar, although he probably wouldn't like me saying it, but when
we
were I know, that's why I thought maybe I should include it. That was
it was quite a 360 spin for Lance Stroll, heading down towards turn 1, locking up the brakes, and round he went in that Aston Martin.
Yeah, entering turn 1 not facing the right way is not ideal for sure, but back to Oscar Piastri. So we used to obviously be at Alpine together and training with him in the gym when he and I first trained together. He was too nervous.
Dangerous.
Copy. That was Albon just coming across a Ferrari in the middle of the road while Albon was on a quick lap. That was Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, but they both lived to fight another day on that one.
Yeah, Oscar was too nervous to actually ask me if I was still using the bench that I was training on. So he went to the trainer and asked him to ask me if I'm still using it. Yes. Bless him.
That's quite sweet in a way.
It is really sweet. But I feel like that's just, he is a really nice guy. And I think that my first impression of him was from that.
I was stood in the lift at Heathrow Airport with Oscar Piastri and a bunch of obviously other people, but they obviously, I don't think they were big F1 fans, because Oscar was at the front of the lift and I was at the back, and in between us all these people, and I'd noticed him, and he'd just come off the back of, I can't remember what race it was, but he just won, and no one batting an eyelid, and he was just there, and he went to the Uber pickup point. Other cab companies are available. I just couldn't believe that. Nobody batting an eyelid, and he was just ambling his way home back to London.
No private chauffeur, just on the Uber. I wonder if he's got 5 stars.
Well, you'd hope so.
Well, he's managed by Mark Webber, of course, and Webber was always not the same kind of character, but similar in lots of ways. You know, very laid back, very matter of fact, very ordinary, very normal. You know, you could just have if you were to pick a Formula 1 driver to go to the pub with, Mark would have been the guy. And they've been working together for 4 or 5 years now. And I'm sure Oscar Piastri's character is his own, but I think they fit together quite nicely, those two.
The first time I ever met Mark Webber, I was doing a podcast with him years ago. Never met him before. He had no idea. I was just starting. He just makes you feel so at ease straight away. Straight away, was like, "Oh, how's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, we're there, are we already? Firm friends." So if he's got those kind of people, Oscar Piastri, backing him, I think it's all for the better. And the sound you're hearing is Piastri now, fastest of anybody in the first sector. He's currently down in 9th on the medium tyre. His teammate is quickest at the moment, but Piastri up on Norris's time in the first sector. Good time for Piastri in the middle sector as well. I'm not sure he's going to have quite enough, but I tell you what, almost a 1,000th of a second splitting the two McLarens. Norris ahead of Piastri, but if those are the margins carried into qualifying, well, we are going to be set up for a tasty qualifying and Grand Prix on Sunday.
This might be a wrong impression because it's quite early doors, obviously, and sort of not even a quarter of the way through second practice, but it just feels to me like Norris is a little bit more comfortable this weekend than he has been the last couple of weekends compared to Piastri. He was quickest in P1 like he was in Bahrain last week as well, but he's been consistently there all the time. We've not heard any complaints on the radio yet. We might get them coming, of course, but just beginning to get that feeling a little bit.
One of the Alpines just had a touch of the wall. I think it was Gasly's Alpine rear right tyre out of the final corner. That is where, if you're going to touch the wall, most are doing it, as they really take advantage of how much track they've got to play with. It is Norris ahead of Piastri by 1,000th of a second. 46 minutes and 17, 16, 15 seconds remain. Charles Leclerc is third. Then come the 2 Red Bull cars, about 3/10 off of Verstappen and Tsunoda. Then it's Russell, Sainz, Gasly, Hamilton and Doohan, the top 10 ahead of Albon, who's out there on the hard tyre. Then comes Kimi Antonelli in 12th, Alonso's 13th, then Hulkenberg and Oliver Behrman, the top 15. Lawson, Hadjar, Stroll.
Why does no one use radios at all? Yeah, I got blocked by the Red Bull. Completely in the way.
Hey, that was Verstappen who blocked you.
Naming and shaming for Will Joseph. on the pit wall. Stroll 18th, Ocon 19th. No Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. That's due to a fuel leak that the team have discovered, so he will not be able to get out of this in this session while they repair that car in time for Saturday's running. Now, Abby, this is the sound of Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. I think this is where we caught him hitting the wall. Oh, you can almost hear it slightly, but it looked fairly square on. Well, just getting an off-board look at it now.
I think there was definitely some contact there. It didn't look major. You can obviously still carry on with a free practice, no issues at all, but you don't want to be getting much closer than that.
Oh, and Charles Leclerc just having a moment as well in the first sector, having to just correct the steering and run out wide as he makes his way around the track. This is the sound of Kimi Antonelli, who has raced here previously in Formula 2, hasn't been able to step up onto the podium, managed to race his way to 2 sixth place finishes last year, currently 13th as he runs to the line and puts that Mercedes up into 6th spot ahead of his teammate George Russell, who's currently in the pits. How have you seen Kimi Antonelli's season so far? Because he was really billed as this wonder kid, like, coming in to the sports. How have you made of his first 4 rounds of Formula 1?
I think it's really exciting, and he's been consistently in the points. Not ahead of George, of course. George has been having a stellar year, but I don't think you'd expect a rookie to be outperforming a driver like George going into a season. But I think he's showing real potential, and he's gone straight into a high-level team, one of the front-running teams. Obviously, I think Mercedes taking a punt on him because they missed out with Verstappen all them years ago, and they see him, like I say, as the new wonder kid, the new Max Verstappen in his own right, and it's exciting. I think he's got a long career ahead of him. I think he's already showing that he deserves to be in this sport for a while.
Yeah, Antonelli is starting to show his talents indeed. He had all the rookies had a really tough start in Australia, didn't they, with those extreme mixed conditions. But Antonelli, 4th place in the end, managing to finish in Australia, 7th in the sprint in China, followed up at 6th in the Grand Prix, 6th again in Japan, and was kind of done over by the safety car in Bahrain, which sort of finished for the first time this season outside of the points. 42 minutes and 51, 50 seconds remain. It's Oscar Piastri who now goes to the top of the times. Both McLarens put on another set.
On brake. Let's check the brakes.
We're looking at it now.
Gasly struggling with his brakes. Piastri and Norris were going again on their medium tyres. Piastri managed to go a 10th and a half quicker than his teammate Norris, who lost a lot of time in the final sector, but they both just been pushed down by Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, who now goes to the top of the times, a 1:29.0, about just less than a 10th and a half clear of Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, it's close between those two McLaren drivers. Norris was actually on a much quicker lap than Piastri again, second time around, but he must have made a mistake at the last corner, I think, Abby, because he went white on the sector boards, which means slower than before. And meanwhile, Leclerc on that lap where he's just gone quickest, he had quite the moment through 22 and 23, a real twitch in the middle of that corner, and that's the really high speed left-right chicane. It's not really wrong, not really right to call it a chicane, is it, Abby? It's quite an awesome corner combination there. But yeah, he caught the moment and kept going to get fastest lap, but he was obviously right on the edge through there.
I always found through 22, especially walking the track, you really feel it, but there's a huge tailwind there. It almost tunnels, and you can never get away from it. Even if there's no wind in the air, all of a sudden you go into turn 22 and there is a huge tailwind. So it's kind of common to see drivers struggling in that corner, as well as the really bumpy braking. It makes it quite unstable when you turn in. So yeah, not surprised that we've had a few drivers go a bit wide there.
Minimum speed, you're carrying 180 kilometers an hour as well through that quick left-hand kink.
I would say it's quicker than that. It looked like it was more like 250 through there.
Well, that's the minimum speed, 180 that you're carrying.
Are you sure that's right?
According to Mercedes.
Really?
Minimum corner speed.
Okay, I'm going to look at that again. I think it's quicker than that.
Well, then you have a go at Mercedes for me. Their word is gospel on the stats when they said those through at the beginning of the weekend. But at the moment, Leclerc, even with that right on the edge moment has gotten to the top of the times. A couple more questions coming in on hashtag BBCF1 for Abby Pulling. Ask her anything and she'll give you an answer, or she'll try to. Russ has asked, question for Abby, what do you think is the most likely route for an F1 Academy driver to becoming an F1 driver?
To be honest, I think it's the same as what I don't know what you want to call it, not a generic but a normal. I think it's the more usual route is to go the F3, F2, F1, and I tend to agree with that. I think go to F1 Academy, move up into the likes of GB3, which I've done. It's essentially just a step below FIA. Then do the normal route. I mean, some drivers may find, instead of doing Formula 2, going to Super Formula. I think the unique thing with that is there's power steering. So if there ever was a physical element, it can be negated with that, although then it's only Japanese circuits that you're driving around. So there's kind of gains from doing anything. But yeah, probably that.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to replace the steps to Formula 1 as you get closer to Formula 1. It was about opening opportunities for women, because there weren't enough female drivers coming through. So it's about, first of all, getting people who are in motor racing already and giving them a chance to get onto the ladder, and then as in Abby's case, giving them helping them with the next step on the ladder by providing some financial assistance, but also about saying to girls who might not be thinking about motor racing as an opportunity, sporting people, kids who are interested in sport, that you too, as a girl, you can go into motor racing as an opportunity as well as any other sport that you might be thinking of. Because in the past, one of the issues was it wasn't considered, socially, culturally. I'm sure Abby can talk about this much more eloquently and more informed than I can, but girls weren't coming into motor racing because it wasn't considered culturally and socially as a place where girls could excel and progress. And as we're seeing more female engineers and managers in Formula 1 now, we're beginning to see, thankfully, more female racing drivers starting to progress. And the Academy is about creating an avenue for those opportunities to be opened up.
Yeah, I mean, I initially wasn't a huge fan of the all-female championships, because I just wanted to race against the best and race. I grew up racing against the boys, so I wanted to continue doing that. But after competing in it and going through the motions, I realised how important it is not only to increase female participation, which has gone up significantly. When I was in karting, it was probably 1% of females were licence holders. It's now closer to 10%, which is incredible. And it's that exposure that will find the next female Formula 1 driver. But I'd like to say I hope it would be me. But also, I'm living, breathing proof that it's working. Anyone that hates it, I've went into single-seaters against the guys, ran out of funding, couldn't continue anymore, but was picked up by the F1 Academy, and it kept my career alive. Introduced me back into mixed competition in British F4, won races and got on the podium there. And now this year, after winning F1 Academy, I'm now back in GB3 racing against the guys and showing that it doesn't matter what gender you are, you can compete at the front no matter what.
And that is the brilliant thing that F1 Academy is doing. It's just opening up more avenues, not only for the driver, but for those who might want to work in the engineering side, on the pit wall management, or even things like HR and back in the back of the garage jobs, tyre technicians.
I actually think Esteban Ocon's race engineer is
Laura Müller,
yeah,
the first female engineer for a driver in Formula 1.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's incredible. At the pinnacle of the sport now, it's opening up, and there's female engineers. So hopefully we can soon see some female drivers.
Yeah, Haas appointing Laura, giving her the promotion this year. Big overhaul actually for Aika Matsu on the pit wall front at Haas as they change up their structure there over the winter. But also, I suppose, because F1 Academy came along and gave a lot of opportunities to that next generation. We can't ignore there were things like W Series as well, which of course Alice Powell very well. She works with you. They allowed drivers of her generation, she won't mind me saying that, to get back to racing as well. So it's something that has been slowly happening, but we're not going to get a female Formula One driver tomorrow, are we? It's still going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, things like this don't happen overnight. And when Alice was first racing, it was even more different. And she was competing in GP3. Well, I hope she's not listening, so I'll compliment her quite kindly here.
I think she definitely is listening. We know that already, don't we, Abby?
Waiting for the text message.
But she is an incredible driver that was just in the wrong...
Got a bit of high-speed bouncing.
Copy that. That was Russell saying he's got a bit of high-speed bouncing.
The dreaded porpoising.
Oh, God, not that again. No, Abby, it's more important what you're saying. You've left us hanging. What did Alice? What did she do wrong?
No, what did she do wrong? No, I mean she did a lot of things right, but the kind of atmosphere and the dynamic in motorsport is changing. It's not just a man's world anymore, and she was the first female to score points in GP3. She had the potential to keep going up, but fortunately, financially there was just no support there, whereas now it's changed, and me myself, I've got so many people behind me, and I'm so lucky for that, like Susie at the F1 Academy themselves, and Rodin Cars really wanting to see a female do well, and I'm very thankful that I'm the one that they're pushing to try and do that.
How has Alice helped you along the way in terms of on the driver side of things and coaching?
Yeah, I mean, Alice has been through it all. She's done everything that I've gone through, and she knew what to expect, and she struggled with the financial side, and she had to stop racing for 5 years before she went into W Series, and when I ran out of funding, she kind of helped me deal with that a lot, and was a great person to go towards, and ended up being that now she's managing me and a lot of my relationships with teams, and I've learned, probably, I regretfully will say this because she's listening probably, but almost everything I know I've learned from Alice and her mistakes that she's made, and it's helped me then not reciprocate, or is that the right word? Kind of repeat them.
Has Alice given you tips in commentary? Because of course she's a 5 Live co-commentator, regular. Has she given you tips on that side?
She actually has, so if I'm doing a bad job, blame her.
Absolutely smashing her out the park, I must say.
Oh, yeah.
Alice, if you're listening, you stand down. We've got Abby now, it's all good.
Oh no, don't say that.
Just so people understand, Alice was texting us through the last session, and we haven't had any texts yet, have we? I don't think.
It's not come through. Maybe she's not. Alice is on F1 Academy commentary duty this weekend, so we'll see if she's got 33 minutes to catch up. If not, she'll be listening back on BBC Sounds, of course, which you can do if you miss any of the action of our Formula One coverage, with myself, Harry Benjamin, alongside the reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pudding and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. 32 minutes and 43 seconds remain. We've had a few runs on the soft tyre, everyone starting on the medium tyre. Initially it's Max Verstappen who's now gone to the top of the times by almost 0.4 of a second from Carlos Sainz. Verstappen with a 1:28.5. Russell is third, then comes Leclerc. Piastri's on an outlap at the moment, having put the soft tyre on. Hulkenberg sixth, Norris in the pits at the moment in seventh, had Hadjar, Tsunoda and Lawson, who was initially the first one to set a lap time on the soft tyre. Antonelli is 11th ahead of Hamilton, who is out on the track at the moment on the soft tyre. Albon 13th, Behrman and Gasly the top 15. Then it's Stroll, Ocon, Jack Doohan and Fernando Alonso, who is out there too, coming into the middle sector on the soft tyre. If you're wondering where Gabriel Bortoleto is, because we've only got 19 drivers out there, a fuel leak for the Sauber driver, so they are having to replace that in time for tomorrow, so he will not get out in this session.
I'm actually excited to see how the Ferrari does on the soft compound when they put it on, because they're showing really strong pace on the mediums. Everyone's slowly getting to the point where they're putting the softer compound on, but yeah, I think also Nico Hulkenberg now sitting in the top 6.
Yeah, we'll see how this all feeds out. Oscar Piastri making his way through turns 10, 11 and 12, and now on the run down towards the banked left-hander of turn 13. It's a 12% gradient here as he turns the steering onto the left and feathers it slightly to the right. as he comes out of the corner through turn 14. I think he's got a car just in front of him who manages to get out of the way. It's Carlos Sainz in the Williams who negotiates that well. Piastri out through 17, 18 and 19 come thick and fast. You're almost driving in a straight line with just the steering wheel moving right, then left, then right again slightly as you dance your way towards the left-hander of turn 22. Take a bit of curb on the exit through the right-hand kink of 23 and it spits you out through 24 as you arc your way around the left-hander of turn 25, then 26, taken flat out. The DRS zone here, the rear wing flat flies open for you, stamp on the brakes into the left-hander, feather the throttles, you feed out on the exit, get as close as you dare to the wall. Piastri negotiates it perfectly. Another dose of DRS beckons as he comes to the line, fastest in the final sector and the middle sector, fastest overall on the soft tyre by a tenth. Piastri to the top of the times with a 1:28.430.
As we ride.
Yeah, sorry, I had a bad hit, exit of C4. Check the floor.
We will check.
That was Isaac Hadjar, who felt like he was clinging on for dear life for most of that lap, Abby.
Yeah, that exit of turn 4 curb is really aggressive. It's quite high, and especially if you get the middle of your car on that, it can cause quite a bit of damage to the floor potentially. And yeah, Isaac just having a few issues with that as we ride on board now with Kimi Antonelli, who kind of suffers the same fate, but it was actually, there's a compression on the apex of turn 4 actually. It's hard to see, but it's there, and gets a massive snap of oversteer, just taking it that little bit wrong and having to cut turn 4.
Fernando Alonso coming to the line as well, getting a nice tow from the back of the Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda on the soft tyre. Alonso from 19th gets himself up into 14th spot as Aston Martin continue to seek more performance from their car. It's been a tough time for the two Aston Martin drivers, Fernando Alonso in particular. No points scored so far this season. A best place finish of 11th in the sprint in China. Lance Stroll managing to pick up some points. Actually 11th, sorry, I should say, not in the sprint, in Japan for Fernando Alonso, and then 10th in the sprint in China, with Lance Stroll managing to get points in round 1 in Australia, making use of those mixed conditions, and again in China as they continue to seek performance. But cars that certainly have performance, Abby, are the McLarens, and Lando Norris is right on the ragged edge.
Oscar's set the benchmark. Now Lando is going to see if he can get close, but there is a lot of traffic in the way going around turn 13. He's purple in the first sector though, so it's looking pretty good heading up into turn 16, where it is a very high speed corner. The barrier comes upon you really close out of the exit of turn 17.
I think it was Jack Doohan and Charles Leclerc who were just slightly in the way of Norris coming into turn 13, but so tricky to get out of the way, isn't it, here, as he lost a bit of time in the middle sector. He's still up overall though on Oscar Piastri by a tenth and a half. Bit more traffic coming for him as he makes his way past Esteban Ocon and Kimi Antonelli through the left hand of 25 and 26 as he approaches the final corner. So easy to catch a break, but Norris does not. Emerges from the exit of turn 27 and to the line. What's Norris got on the soft tyre? And it's fastest, a 1:28.340, but nothing between the two McLaren drivers.
Now, Abby was saying a minute or two ago that she really wants to see the pace of the Ferraris on the soft tyre, and so do I. But unfortunately, Charles Leclerc has been out on those soft tyres for 4 laps. I think he's just come into the pits again. I think we saw an onboard camera of him going. He'd slowed down with a timing clock on him going past a Red Bull, and I think he got blocked by a Red Bull on his first flying lap. But he seems to have just done since then 3 slow laps. He might have tried to start a flying lap just now because he was half a second off in the first sector, and he's coming to the pits, and so we might not get to see Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre unfortunately today.
Yeah, whether it's the traffic hindering Charles or just the actual feeling on the soft tyre they're not gelling with, it feels maybe more confident on that medium compound.
Alex Albon, just seeing a moment for him coming around that final corner. Not the first time we'll see a car scrape the wall. Not the last time we will either. Into the last half an hour now, 26 minutes and 10 seconds remain.
And just to follow up that point, Hamilton has also been out on the soft tyre and not set a lap time, and he just came into the pits, although he's come out again, I think on the same set of tyres, although it's showing up as used. So maybe we'll see Hamilton get a proper run this time around, although he doesn't seem to have quite had Leclerc's pace so far yet.
No, Hamilton at the moment down in 12th.
Looks like Leclerc's come out again too, so let's just keep an eye on them. Maybe they'll do a lap now.
Yeah, Leclerc just coming through the first sector now, Hamilton too, so they're pretty close together on the track. Piastri is having another go at it. Less than a tenth separate the two McLaren drivers at the moment as he finds all the road he can on the exit of turn 3 into the left-hander of turn 4. Immediately once again to the right, almost a double right-hander of turn 5 before you swing back in on yourself. Left through 6, right 7, right through turn 9. It comes at you so quickly. The driver's eyes on absolute stalks, having to get through the traffic as well, but he's lost time in the first sector, almost 3/10 down in sector 1 compared to Lando Norris, again on that soft tyre for Oscar. About 25 minutes left of free practice 2. Now the sun has set and the lights illuminate this Jeddah Corniche street track, and at the moment it's advantage McLaren. We expected them to have the pace and they are so far delivering on that. Nothing though between the two of them. Lando Norris quickest by less than a tenth of a second to Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, but still work to do for those two, and even Ferrari could be throwing a spanner into the works. It is Lando Norris quickest by less than a tenth to Piastri. Verstappen is third, Sainz fourth, Tsunoda the top 5. Then it's Russell, Leclerc, Gasly, Hülkenberg and Albon the top 10. Kimi Antonelli is 11th ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Are we going to see what the two Ferrari drivers have got on the soft tyre now they are back out there on them? Hadjar is 13th ahead of his teammate Lawson. Alonso is the top 15. Then it's Behrman, Doohan, Stroll and Esteban Ocon 19th. And last, Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber, not taking part in this session due to a fuel leak in his Sauber. They're having to get that repaired in time for him to go qualifying tomorrow with 23 minutes and 52 seconds remaining.
Isaac Hadjar now finishing his push lap. He's gone green, so it looks like he's improving. See if it can put him into the top 10. Oh, no, not quite a big enough improvement. Yellow in the last sector, so maybe a little mistake coming in there. But not the performance that the Racing Bulls will be happy with. They've been able to get that car in the top 10 recently, and they seem to be struggling a little bit more this weekend.
Yeah, I think they struggled last weekend as well, really, in Bahrain as well. Both Hadjar finished 13th, Lawson finished down in 16th. I mean, he's not had the best of returns to Racing Bulls. It's been a tough 5 rounds so far. Well, if you included this one, let's see how it goes for Lawson. But it's been a tough start to 2025 for the Kiwi driver. I mean, mentally, how do you bounce back from what's happened to him so far this year?
I was going to say, mentally being thrown around team to team, it's not easy having to adapt constantly. It's really, really frustrating for him, and he probably feels like he's not been able to show his true potential.
Let's see, he's currently down in 14th spot. Now, Andrew, what is going on with these two Ferraris on the soft tyre?
So Leclerc is out on that same set of soft tyres. They're coming up as used, and he's doing his fastest lap of the session so far. It doesn't look like he's on target to beat the McLarens. We've just got the timing thing up on the board. He's nearly 4/10 off after sector 2. So the problem is we're not going to be able to read anything into it because, he's done 4 or 5 laps on it already, so they're not at their optimum condition, those tyres. Hamilton's
also out there still coming through sector 1 now, but he's still down in 13th spot. This is the sound of Charles Leclerc, who is expecting the upgrades introduced last week in Bahrain to work a bit better here at the high-speed circuit of the Jeddah Corniche street track. And although he does improve his lap time on that latest run on the soft tyre, his best so far of the session puts him up in 4th. He's still 4/10 away from Lando Norris and the leading McLaren. Those pairs split by less than a tenth of a second. Verstappen then a couple of tenths back from Piastri. Leclerc now 4th ahead of Carlos Sainz. Tsunoda is 6th. He's about 6/10 off the pace. Then it's Russell, Gasly, Hülkenberg and Alex Albon, the top 10. Lando Norris, though, is going again, and he is going quicker. Didn't have the best sector one, actually lost time compared to himself, but is up on his own time through the middle sector. So fastest of anybody so far, into the left-hand braking of the final corner for the British racer, to the line. Try and get as close to the pit wall as you can, but you cannot cross the white line there or even dip a wheel onto the white line. Your lap time will be deleted, and he improves on his lap time, and he's now over a tenth and a half clear of his teammate with a 1:28.267.
So I would just reiterate what I said earlier in the session. He does look more comfortable than he did in Bahrain, Lando Norris, so far. This is much more convincing performance from him. We're getting a replay of Oscar Piastri. Abby, what's this about?
It looks like potentially traffic. Oh no, actually in turn 16 on the entry where you have to prep it.
Touch the wall with the front left.
Copy.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Oscar.
Finished your sentence. I think he'll get away with that one. So why do we think Lando Norris then is feeling more confident around this circuit? What? Well, here's Albon first.
I think I just skimmed the wall.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of that. That was coming again through the final corner for Alex Albon, as he has a little touch with the front right. I mean, Andrew, obviously the differences are quite clear between the track characteristics. This is a high-speed circuit, but what else? As Antonelli actually has quite the touch with the barrier on the exit of the final corner. It shakes the rear wing, and we're just going to see, was it both the front right and the rear left? Oh.
Box, I clipped the wall, exit of last corner.
Okay, copy.
Yeah, a bit more than a clip there, Kimi, I think. Look, it could be two things, or a combination of two things. Could be both of the two things I'm about to say. One is track characteristics, as you say, Harry. It's a very different track from Bahrain or even China that was before that. Well, not China, Japan was before that, but you know what I mean. It's another different characteristic, different tarmac again from Bahrain. Abby's nodding enthusiastically, so maybe she can expand on that point as to what difference that might make for Norris and his particular struggles, which was a particular phase of the corner entry. He was struggling with front end grip. It could also be that I know that McLaren have been working on putting something on the car that is going to help him. I haven't heard that that's on this weekend, but it's not impossible that in that working towards where Norris wants the car to be, that they've made a step this weekend as well.
New performance upgrades for McLaren this weekend too, the diffuser and the rear corner. Let's see how they help them. But with 18 minutes and 48, 47, 46 on the clock, the two McLarens sitting pretty at the top and in the pits. Norris, Piastri, then it's Verstappen, Leclerc and Carlos Sainz going well for Williams so far, up in the top 5 ahead of Tsunoda. Then comes Russell, Gasly, Hülkenberg and Albon, the top 10. Antonelli, Hadjar, Hamilton, Lawson and Alonso, the top 15, with Behrman, Doohan, Stroll and Ocon making up the remaining 19 drivers. No Gabriel Bortoleto with that fuel leak. Hashtag BBCF1 if you want to ask the reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling a question. We've had another one come in. Abby, if you were Max Verstappen, would you leave Red Bull for another team or not?
To be honest, I'd probably just take my paycheck and have a nice holiday.
75 million and go.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I can't ignore the fact that the climate within Red Bull is changing. A lot of the people...
I thought you were carrying on with holiday destinations there for a minute.
No, I could have been. No, but the climate and the atmosphere within Red Bull is changing. It is different. There's a lot of personnel that are leaving, and it's looking like a very different team than what it maybe did a year or two ago. That's definitely something that you can't ignore as a driver. The team is where Max wants to feel at home, and if all them people are constantly rotating and changing, it may no longer feel as it once did.
That will be a question that Max Verstappen, whether he cares to admit it or not, will be weighing up as the season goes by. I think on average during the race last week, Max Verstappen was about 8 tenths slower than Piastri in Bahrain, which is not a number that he will be impressed by. With 16 minutes and 56 and 55 seconds on the clock. I'm glad. I think Max Verstappen had a few firm words for some commentators in the press conference this weekend when asking him about his future. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to stick to the commentary for the time being. It's Lando Norris quickest. Carlos Sainz is out there, actually, and while the majority are in the pits, the two Williams cars are out there. Albon on out lap at the moment. Sainz is on the medium tyre. Albon has put on the hard. So I think Williams are fancying their chances this weekend. They were so, I think, frustrated and disappointed after last weekend in Bahrain. Both drivers felt good points were possible. But I suppose in this era and this year of Formula One, Abby, actually the margins between the top team and the bottom team are the closest they've ever been. So it's all, you could have a points scoring car underneath you, but you've got to hook it up in qualifying. You have to be on the edge with every single lap, right?
I mean, it is incredibly close, especially as we get to the end of this era of kind of generation of Formula One car, as obviously the regulations change in 2026, but it's getting increasingly closer, and then it all changes in a year's time, which will be frustrating for the teams. But I mean, Albon, I think, won't be particularly happy with being 4 or 5 tenths off of his teammate. But then again, it can all change in the race, as the safety car prediction is 100%. So it is a track where a lot can go wrong, and it's a high probability of a safety car. So even if your qualifying isn't ideal, there could be opportunities to be smart with the strategy.
Yeah, in the 4 previous Grand Prix in Saudi Arabia, every single one of them has had a safety car at some point, as Lando Norris just decides not to make turn 1 and cruises straight over the runoff and cuts the corner. In terms of probability for a virtual safety car, that's about 50%, and red flag about a 25%. 3 out of the 4 races, though, have been won from pole. Overtaking is tricky around here. I think we've got to be upfront about that. Last year, I think they've broken it down. There were 6 normal overtakes and 15 aided through DRS. Where are the key zones for overtaking around this track, Abby?
Yeah, the main overtaking opportunity is into turn 1 after the main straight. It definitely is actually the slowest corner on the track. And then going into turn 4, you're very brave if you think that will work. The next opportunity is potentially turn 13, although being on load and the combination of the corner, it is incredibly difficult in there. I'd say the only 2 that I'd try my hand at is turn 1 and turn 27. So one half of the track, it's not great odds.
If you can't make it stick in turn 1, you've got to wait 26 corners before you can have another go.
Yeah, basically, and it's a hard track to follow on as well with the nature of the high speed. So you've got to try and get as close as you can till then, and you can make a mistake quite easily because of the aero wash and drop back again and have to wait another lap.
We've had a lot of chat recently about dirty air. It's kind of resurfaced, and this whole ground effect era was brought in, right, to try and mitigate that, because cars really struggled to follow another car, and that meant we couldn't get any overtaking. But that's starting to rear its head again. So do you think it's right that actually we are now in the final year and we're going to switch it up again for 2026, even though when you look at the margins, it's incredibly competitive?
Yeah, it is definitely an era of car that is quite hard to follow in now, but I think that's natural when everyone is getting the most performance out of it as possible. It's incredibly close. It's going to be hard to overtake. It's not going to be easy, and you know, you can't forget that. And like I say, next year it all changes and everyone goes back to square one, and it will be probably quite more exciting again at the start of the new regulations, but it will then at the end of them regulations get closer and more harder to overtake.
Well, let's see. We've still got a pretty full calendar of racing to head on. We'll have a week off after Saudi Arabia before we head to Miami, which will play host as well to the second of the sprint races this season. We'll also be sprinting around Belgium and a little later on in the year in Sao Paulo and Qatar before we round off the year once again in Abu Dhabi. So another packed calendar, 24 races in a season. Do you think that's enough?
It's quite a lot, to be fair. It's a very busy schedule for a driver, and I mean.
But how many have you got this year? What's the GB3 calendar?
So The junior categories work a little bit differently, whereas Formula 1, other than the sprint race weekends, they have one main event race. In GB3 we actually have 3 races a weekend, so we have 8 racing weekends with 3 races per weekend, so it's quite jam-packed. One of them's a reverse grid race, so really exciting, and can make for some interesting races, that's for sure. But it is not as intensive as what the Formula 1 drivers go through, especially the fact that I'm racing only in Europe, whereas they're racing all around the world.
I mean, it's a relentless calendar, isn't it? And that's why I tend not to feel too sorry for the drivers, no offence.
I don't blame you.
Especially if you're the F1 driver, you're probably being flown around in a pretty decent accommodation as well.
I mean, when you're a Formula 1 driver, you have a team around you, and you have people that can think of your sleep schedule and what you need to eat when, and if you need to.
I could really do with that. That would be
great. but you've got everything you need to be set and have all your concentration on the racing. I mean, maybe not every single driver has the same amount of support, like maybe some of the rookies new into it, they're still building that kind of team, but certainly the likes of Lando, Lewis, Verstappen, they will all have people that they know and trust, and will be giving them everything they need.
That would really, when we went to Australia, I think I spoke to quite a few of the teams there, and even Alpine, even though I think it was I can't remember who at Alpine, but they were saying Esteban Ocon, he doesn't suffer from jet lag. He just has it nailed down because he immediately is able to adapt to a new sleep schedule. He's clearly aided by some things to do that, but he apparently just doesn't suffer from it.
I think as well, if I remember rightly, Esteban was one that loved his sleep, in the sense of, like, I get like 8 hours a night, like that's a good night for me. I think he can get upwards of like 10 hours.
He's a man after my own heart. Yeah. on that side. 10 hours sleep minimum, thank you very much. I need my beauty sleep. So does Esteban Ocon.
No, it seems you got something in common then.
I suppose you never suffer from jet lag if you're constantly sleeping. So.
Yeah, exactly. But that's his way around it. Sleep through the jet lag.
Exactly. Well, you do whatever works for you, and every driver will have something that works for them. And that's the thing, though. In this modern day age of Formula 1, the technology that they have available to them is immense, and constantly striving to find new ways forward and new ways of dealing with all the countries that we go to. I mean, we've just flicked around between Japan, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. The calendar is trying to get better when it comes to grouping races in terms of distance travelled from a sustainability point of view, but equally just from a logistical point of view as well. It would help massively. So still striving to do that. That's why we see Japan now much earlier in the year. Got a yellow flag out on track. We've been having some long runs happening in the last few minutes or so, and that's because we've got some damage, and it's a Red Bull in the wall, and it's Yuki Tsunoda who has found the wall, and it's on the exit of the final corner. We've been seeing cars dancing out of the exit there and scraping along the wall, and it looks like Tsunoda has found it, and that is a big lot of damage for the Red Bull driver. It's brought out the red flag. Front wing gone, front right tyre and suspension gone. The rear right has taken a whack as well, and Tsunoda though is moving. He's just removed the headrest and he's making his way out of the car now. And that's not what Yuki wanted coming into what will be his third race of the year with Red Bull.
We've been seeing drivers flirting with that wall and getting closer and closer throughout the session, and as we've gone from P1 to P2, and Yuki seems to be the first victim to full fate of the last corner. It's all too much of a familiar sight, seeing a stricken Red Bull in that last corner.
Tsunoda jogs away after putting his steering wheel back in the car, and after the soft tyre runs, he was about 4/10 down on teammate Verstappen, who lies third, Tsunoda in sixth, and Tsunoda was out there on track on the medium tyre looking at the long run pace, and immediately the medical car is there to collect Yuki and take him back for some checks, and now we're about to get a look at how it happened. So he's making his way down that stretch from turn 25 to turn 26. There's a slight left-hander, hits the brakes down to third gear, through the left-hander. Oh, and actually the incident started on the inside of the corner, Abby, because he clipped the inside with his front left tyre.
Yeah, that was not what I expected to see at all. He just took too much out of the apex and brushed the wall, damaged the front left suspension, and off he went. He became a passenger at that point.
And you can see him, he's got full left side down on the steering wheel, but he's lost all direction and heads straight into the exit barrier, and that's what does the front right in.
For any racing driver, that's an embarrassing accident to hit the inside wall. He just completely misjudged the entry. You really shouldn't be doing that at the highest level, unfortunately.
But is that reflective of how difficult the Red Bull is on the front end and how inconsistent it is? Sometimes it's giving more pointiness than not.
Sorry, guys.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Might be. Abby, what do you think?
It just looks clumsy from my point of view, to be honest. I think there's, no matter how pointy or non-pointy the car is on a street circuit, taking too much of the apex when there's nothing to take is, it's a bit silly.
So that's Tsunoda out of Red Bull then, is it?
Okay, right, let's not jump to conclusions here.
He's not out of Red Bull, but they wonon't be impressed by that, that's for sure. I mean, to be fair to him, it's his first crash since he joined Red Bull. I kind of thought he'd crash at Degna 2 in Japan. His first race weekend, he didn't. But he's shown some promise, but the problem with Tsunoda so far at Red Bull, and we can't expect too much, right, because it's a difficult car and he's got Max Verstappen as a teammate, and he's not had a good run up to it, but he's shown promise, but when it's mattered, he's fallen back, and that's not good in itself. And then hitting the inside wall at the last corner is also not good. It's one thing to just push it a bit too hard, clip the wall on the exit and all that sort of thing, but that's just it's a basic misjudgment that racing drivers at this level shouldn't be making.
Well, Tsunoda then out of the session, red flag, and because it's practice, the clock continues to count down, so I wonder if we will get this session restarted or not. And Lando Norris was right behind Yuki Tsunoda and saw it all unfold, and when you look at it from behind, it does look rather clumsy from Tsunoda in the Red Bull, and as he hits that inside wall, loses all steering, the suspension breaks and careers into the right side of the wall and damages the front right, and the front wing flies off. He sees it coming, clears his hands from the steering wheel, and that was all she wrote.
On the rear end as well. I'm a bit nervous to see what damage that might have done, and if that needs a change going into tomorrow, maybe a grid penalty if it's that bad.
Well, Red Bull had to get that car back and checked over. 4 minutes on the clock, make that 3 minutes and 55 seconds. It's Lando Norris quickest ahead of Oscar Piastri, Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth. Signs the top five with Tsunoda, who is now out of this session, having crashed the car sixth. Russell, Gasly, Hülkenberg and Albon, the top 10.
Now, it is all what you have been waiting for. The best part of the coverage, I have to admit, is my favourite part. Get your cup of tea ready for this.
Long Run Corner with Andrew Benson.
We can go the distance, we'll find out in the long run. In the long run.
Oh, you're too kind, Abby. We don't have that much long run data. They were just getting going, really. Max Verstappen had done the most laps because he started early. I'm going to discount some of his laps because he had done twice as many as everybody else, and that sort of skews the picture. But the McLarens have looked quickest on one lap so far. On a long run, they are they're on another planet. Oscar Piastri's average is a second a lap nearly quicker than Max Verstappen's on the first 4 laps of their long runs. And actually Charles Leclerc is between those two cars, but again the McLaren is 7 or 8 tenths on average quicker than the Ferrari. Lando Norris, I can't compare you with Oscar Piastri because he's just done 1 lap, but it just looked like it just underlines just how quick that McLaren is. It would appear to anyway on this snapshot of long run data that we've just had this afternoon.
Thank you, Andrew. So McLaren, as we predicted coming into this weekend, looking strong, looking like the ones to beat yet again, the reigning Constructors champions, hoping to carry that forward this year, not only for the team, but could one of their drivers become world champion by the end of 2025. There will still be some stumbling blocks in their way. In Formula One, you never quite know what's going to unfold, particularly at a track like this. All it takes is for a Tsunoda-type crash in Q3, and Norris hasn't done his lap yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a minute and a half on the...
Your hand okay tired?
I've got used to this now.
Only a minute and a half on the clock, and as we heard there, George Russell waiting to get released, almost in a last lap dash quali-esque style kind of situation. Everyone holding their hands up, waiting for the drivers to get ready to go, but I think they'll be cutting it fine to be able to get a lap in by now.
Well, they have said the session's going to resume in less than 10 seconds, so Kimi Antonelli is not going to take part. He's out of this session, but that was George Russell referring to his engineer Marcus Dudley, who was just stood in the garage in that central pillar where the engineers base themselves, with his hand held out saying stop, don't go yet, until given the all clear. That hand has now come down as cars are released into the pit lane. They're essentially being released to do a practice start at this point, aren't they? That's what you get with 50 seconds of running.
Yeah, I was going to say there must be practice starts at the end of the session, else it would be a nice little seeing the sights of Jeddah, little out lap and cruise around.
Well, of course, every lap is a bit more data on the board, and actually for the likes of somebody like Gabriel Bortoleto with absolutely zero running, that's a bit of a setback. Even though we had FP1, this is the representative session.
Yes, and even missing out on the practice starts, it's a really, really good time to kind of get a gauge for the clutch and the procedure, and he's missing out on all of that, which is really unfortunate for him. And the starts can change track to track. I mean, this track surface, we touched on it a little bit earlier, compared to Bahrain is what we call a lower macro, so the gaps within the tarmac is much smaller. It's a smoother surface, whereas the macro is really high in Bahrain, and then you can go even more in depth to the micro side, which is the really, really small grooves within the circuit. But it all plays a part in the start procedure, and he's missing out on that vital bit of information.
Well, let's see for the likes of Bortoleto and Yuki Tsunoda, even Kimi Antonelli and Hadjar not heading out in these final stages. The clock has now counted down to 0, so everybody just heading out to finish off a lap and take the checkered flag before then making their way around to do a practice start. But at the end then of Friday's running, it's Lando Norris and McLaren, fastest of them all. Oscar Piastri is second, ahead of Max Verstappen third, Charles Leclerc fourth, Carlos Sainz putting in a good showing for Williams in the top 5. Then comes Yuki Tsunoda crashing out right at the end in 6th, George Russell 7th, Gasly 8th, Hülkenberg 9th, with Alex Albon rounding out the top 10. Kimi Antonelli was 11th, Isaac Hadjar behind him, Lewis Hamilton needing to show a little bit more pace so far, 13th ahead of Lawson. Then it's Fernando Alonso. Ollie Behrman is 16th ahead of Jack Doohan. Lance Stroll 18th, Esteban Ocon 19th, and as we said, no running for Gabriel Bortoleto. So Abby, what have you taken away then from your first Friday in the 5 Live commentary box?
I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the Ask Abby questions. It was nice to have that little feature. I hope everyone got the answers they were looking for. And yeah, it's a circuit that I absolutely love. So really, really happy to give a bit more insight on it.
Well, your first Friday this year, I should say. Of course, you have done one with us this year, last year. So you've come back for another bite at the cherry. I mean, McLaren do look like they are the ones to beat. What happens now with Red Bull and Tsunoda as a driver? He walks back to the garage when you've just had a bit of an embarrassing crash. What are you saying? How are you responding to that?
All he can really say is sorry. It was no one else's fault. It wasn't that there was anything that went wrong. It was a complete misjudgment from him, and a really clumsy misjudgment as well. So he needs to make sure he exaggerates the fact that it will not happen again, especially not in that fashion.
Well, ended up 6th in the end, and there's almost a little bit of racing action still heading out onto the track as they make their way around after the checkered flag to head to the starting grid to do their practice starts. I think also a word for Carlos Sainz. That looks like an impressive run so far for the Williams driver, who's looked quick out the blocks so far on Friday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they progress through the weekend into qualifying, if they can maintain that form. I mean, P5 for the Williams ahead of the Red Bull of Tsunoda and also the Mercedes of George Russell. They're two front drivers in front running teams. So to be able to outperform them is really impressive.
And work to do, by the looks of it, for the likes of Lewis Hamilton, down in 13th, who just hasn't looked like he's got the pace to match teammate Charles Leclerc at the moment.
No, I mean, his teammate Charles is getting a lot out of that car in this session gone. I'm sure they'll evaluate after the session, do a debrief and see where they can find it going forward. But it's not looking great for the Hamilton camp at the moment.
Now, Abby, you're not going to be with us for qualifying, so I'm going to have to get your prediction for pole and the win now. What are we saying?
You put me on the spot here. I think George might have another good appearance. No, in the top three. No, not in the pole. I realise how that sounds. I mean, it's going to be a McLaren. I don't think I can tell you which one, but I think, George might be in the mix at the front. I mean, Charlie is the man of qualifying. He's got that one lap pace. It's whether Ferrari can give him the car that he needs. Oh gosh. I'm going to have to bag for Lando. He seems really confident in this session gone, but who knows at the end of the day. I think that's the exciting thing going to this year. I feel like we know it's probably going to be orange, but we can't tell who it's going to be. That inter-team battle is really interesting.
Abby, you're sitting on the fence like a true commentator. Thank you very much for that.
I'll not sit on the fence if you want.
We'll make it quick.
We'll turn the tables. I'll go for Norris.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll save it for the podcast as well. We are going to be live at 9 o'clock for our preview show. You can join us then later and then get it as a podcast if you miss it. FP3 tomorrow at 2. Qualifying on the sports website at 5 to 6. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.